Somebody that you have been getting to know, that you have been talking to, that you have been dating and exploring romance with, feels that you have like stepped out of the pages of a magazine and into their life, or you've stepped out of their dreams and into reality. You are the type of person with this act as if your partner is here that they have been trying to manifest in their life to no avail for quite some time. You have renewed this person's thought that I can get what I want in this lifetime. I don't need to settle for less. My standards aren't too high. I'm not being too picky. I'm not being too selective. This person could have been holding out on getting into a relationship until it felt just right within. This person could have been like, I'll choose to be single rather than sort of like settling for less than what it is that I know I deserve and less than what I know it is that I want, which might have led to a lot of pushback from friends and family. People could have been giving them a hard time, like, if you don't just sort of find someone, you're going to end up alone. If you keep your standards high, that's going to be increasingly unreasonable, and the pool of candidates that you will have to choose from is going to become less and less as time goes on. Or people that might have even just altogether kind of assumed, well, I guess this person's going to stay single forever because nobody ever seems to make the cut. Nobody ever seems to be good enough. They never sort of bring anyone home to meet us, or they're never talking about anyone special. This could have led to a lot of frustration within this person, where it feels like for some of you, they were almost on the brink of like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to lower those standards. I guess what it is that I'm seeking is very unreasonable. And then all of a sudden you came along and they're like breathing a sigh of relief, like, thank goodness I didn't settle, for that person that I was dealing with before that was almost right, sort of okay, but not exactly the full package. Didn't really make me feel, that everything was aligned inside, or there were obvious kind of discrepancies between the two of us that would have always had me kind of investing that energy of like love and relationships take work into working to look the other way, looking to kind of like, ignore sort of those aspects within that didn't totally align. And now you've come into the picture, and there's a lot of gratitude at the stars aligning for the two of you to match up with one another, to be able to kind of meet one another where you are at this point in your lives and explore that forward potential. And a lot of these qualities that you bring to the table that are really helping this person to feel like, in a way, to sort of celebrate themselves, like, yeah, I had my standards high for a reason. I knew what I wanted to manifest. This person could have been studying like law of attraction, really seeking to align with sort of, that feeling of wish fulfillment, in addition to kind of like a list of qualities, things they were attracted to, things they wanted to try out and to experiment with to sort of get different results, maybe from disappointments in the past, that this formula that they've applied to dating or romance or their love life, it's like it's all panned out with you in a way that is making them feel like, yeah, I knew that I was following my instinct in a particular direction for a reason. This person may be getting very excited about kind of like where this connection is headed. It feels like it's getting very hard for them to hold back their truth in terms of maybe, holding some feelings back from you, sort of like, okay, we need to just take this one step at a time before, I'm opening up on an emotional level, but I'm becoming more and more comfortable that will be an inevitability sooner rather than later. For some people, this is almost like trying to withhold that sort of information from friends or family. Like, yeah, I've met someone. I think I'm really hitting it off with them. I think this is the one. I think this is headed in a good direction, because it's like they want to make sure. They want to make sure that they're not like diving in head first, or, getting ahead of themselves in any sort of way, but where this series of interactions between the two of you is headed, what they're feeling inside, what they are sort of showing to you, and the way in which you're responding to that and sort of giving back to them as well. This is helping them to feel like, yeah, I've made the right decision here. I had the right standards. I had the right formula. I was patient with this process. I didn't just sort of settle for the first thing that came along, or second guess or doubt myself, or allow others to put pressure or peer pressure on me to kind of lower those standards just to fill kind of a space of loneliness, just to fill a void next to me. There's a sense that they have held out for a while, or for something very specific, and now you've come into their life, and it's like, yeah, you were the one that I was holding out for. I knew that these qualities could exist within a person, but I was on the fence. I was kind of in doubt, like, is this really real? Is this just like a product of my imagination? Is this something that can like actually work out for me in this lifetime? Can I actually get what I want in this lifetime? And all the signs are pointing to yes. All their experiences with you are pointing to like, this is the right choice. This is the right connection. The time is right for the two of you. Yeah, we also have true love. So it feels like this is a person who is looking to date to marry. And if you haven't had that conversation with one another yet, they're getting more comfortable with sort of like, yeah, if I've mentioned that, let me show you what that means. Or, if you haven't kind of like touched on that yet, because you might have met this person sort of in the last place you would have expected to find romance. And so it's like you're coming around to that topic of emotions in a different sort of direction. So this is something where it's like, yeah, I like you. I like what we're experiencing. We're getting to know one another. It might be like platonic at this point, but there's a sense of like, when I open up about those feelings again, sooner rather than later, because I know a lot of you are kind of like, when's love coming? I'm impatient. I'm kind of like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready for something serious. It feels like this person is also ready for something serious. They're just like needing to kind of take it sort of step by step with you, sort of one day at a time. But everything within them is like, yeah, this is the right direction. This feels increasingly like the right person to be able to kind of get what it is that I'm looking for out of romance, to be able to, fulfill your romantic needs as well. Anything you've sort of hinted at or expressed to one another, they're feeling that that is really aligned, that this is not a circumstance where, you're just going to be like wasting one another's time, or you're not looking for the same thing. This is someone that's looking for long-term commitment. They're looking for something serious. They're looking for quality rather than quantity. And so the qualities that you are bringing to the table, or that they are kind of discovering about you through your experiences with one another, it's making them feel like, yeah, this was the right decision to, approach you. It was the right decision to open up in the ways that they have. It was the right decision to maybe hold space for you to open up, or maybe you're the person that approached them and they were receptive. And it's like, yeah, that was the right decision. Whatever those circumstances are, however those details align with you, this is somebody that is looking at this as like they enjoy the experience with you, and the idea of kind of like, okay, emotions could deepen, or I could see myself falling in love with this person. This is not something that is scary. This is not something that is kind of like sending up a lot of alarm bells or serving as a red flag for them. Instead, this is something that's like, yeah, I can see that happening. I can see this connection continuing to align in those deeper ways, to where that's almost like inevitable. Or for some, they're kind of like praying, they're hoping that things will lead to that you're going to feel the same way, and that you'll continue to progress with one another in that direction. We also have spiritual connection. Yeah, so again, another confirmation of somebody that's not just looking for a hookup, somebody that's not just looking for a temporary situation. It feels like this person, though, is very direct. They're very down to business. They are like, okay, we need to take time to get to know one another, but, I don't have all day. I'm not gonna, sit here and like years go by and then, okay, I think I'm comfortable, let's start to talk about emotions. This is somebody, it feels like, that they like the pace that you have going with one another. They like the way in which you both, in your own ways, have been vulnerable with one another. You've been trusting this process. You've been honoring your own sort of like intuitions, your own personal sensibilities, not overgiving to this connection, not being very picky or demanding of one another, kind of like respecting one another's boundaries and sort of the limits of where you're at. But then there's also the energy of coaxing one another beyond that threshold, each in your own way. This is something this person almost feels like beyond sort of your direct interactions with one another, there's almost like a language that is occurring between your souls, a sense of almost like, okay, we reach this certain threshold and it's like we're unison in terms of let's expand this to the next level. Let's kind of take the conversation in a new direction. Let's express some greater degree of vulnerability with one another, where they almost feel like the idea of partnering up with you or things becoming more serious, that this wouldn't even just be pleasing or satisfying in a mundane sense, but there are like these subtle or sort of energetic cues within them that indicate like, yeah, this is a good decision. This is in the right direction. I feel very comfortable with the prospect of that. It feels very aligned with something that will be satisfying in a long-term sense. It feels like this person also really, they respect your value system or your perspective on the world. The way in which you're not just approaching them, but also approaching other interpersonal relationships. Maybe things that you've talked about where you've had to set boundaries with people, or people that you talk about, and kind of like the way in which you sort of express details or emotion about things and people that you care about, that you love. And all of this is helping them to kind of get a glimpse at sort of more of these subtle qualities beyond the surface, kind of who you are as a person, who you are on those deeper layers. And so there's a sense of like, yeah, I think that we really align in that sense. I see that our lives could really align. We could really add something to the measure of the value of one another's existence, rather than just having this exclusively as a connection that is like sexually gratifying or, very kind of like pleasing or affirming for the ego. Like, yeah, those kind of qualities are here. This person finds you to be, really sexy, really attractive, something that on paper it all kind of adds up. It all matches with the criteria that they're looking for. But there's also something in terms of like the subtle sense within of just like, yeah, even if there's a lot of unknowns in this circumstance, it's a good sort of curiosity that is coaxing me to that point of wanting to explore this more and feeling like this is the type of connection, or you're the person that they've been trying to align with. We also have be in the present and dream of the future. Yeah, so this person is definitely thinking about what happens next in this situation, even if it's early in your connection, even if you're still getting to know one another, or there's other kind of like challenges as far as communication is concerned. Maybe it's the way in which you met this person, where it's not like, you went on a dating site or, where they asked you out very directly, but it's kind of like, okay, this could be a friendship where feelings are starting to develop. And so you've got that kind of connection where, okay, we've got this platonic bond with one another, but now how do we get into that territory of discussing matters of the heart? And so if that's the case, this is somebody that feels like that wants to spend more time with you in the present. They want to hang out with you more. They want to talk to you more. They want the conversations to be longer, to go into more in-depth topics. All of this is a way to kind of lean into that deeper experience with one another, where then it's almost like inevitable that feelings will be talked about. Not just kind of like I'm crushing on you immediately in the moment, but, I really like you as a person. I really like the experience of having you in my life, and I'm trusting in that enough. And I feel that that is aligned enough that if we are to take a chance and kind of explore romance or sort of dive into that deeper territory of emotional vulnerability, that this is something that, would work out for both of us, that this wouldn't be something that we would regret. Like they're trusting in the foundation between the two of you that you have already, or that you're building with one another, to be solid enough that like, even if there's something where you haven't talked at all about feelings, or, this is again just kind of like a friendship at this point, there's a sense of like, even if we step into that territory and it turns out that we don't work or we don't align, which for most of you, they're like, I think that would align. Like that's just the next inevitable step between the two of us. Like who's going to speak on this first? Who's going to say something first? But there's also a sense of kind of like, if we find out that, we're better off as friends, I trust that we can kind of just retreat back into that nature of our interactions, and everything will be good. Like the friendship even would be stronger for that. But instead of kind of like thinking about taking steps back, this person is thinking about like taking leaps forward, sort of like what happens next. I want to get to know you more. I want to get to know you deeper. I want you to see other sides of me as well. We also have love makes the difference. Yeah, so it feels like you are bringing a lot of qualities to the table that they've never encountered in a romantic partner before. Maybe this is somebody that has never like dated someone that they've had a friendship with. They've never done the like friends first and then to lovers. For others of you, this is something where, you know, if this has just been like, you know, it's only been pure romance, you know, that the connection has been approached from. For some of you, this is like a situationship. So it's just been like a sexual connection. It's just maybe been hooking up, you know, and then they caught feelings and they're not running from those feelings. There's a sense of sort of like, this is different than what I expected. It's different from anything that I've known, but it's a good different. It's feeling right because I don't feel like the need to recoil. I don't feel the need to put up my boundaries. I don't feel the need to kind of, you know, vet the situation out anymore. I don't feel the need to check in with my logic. Like my energy is saying yes. I'm very magnetized towards you. You are giving me a different sort of experience, or, you know, kind of like remarkably sort of not bringing up the usual fears or the usual hesitations or the usual kind of like need to control the outcome. You're just vibing with one another on this kind of deeper level that's very different for them. That is a green flag. It's a green light in and of itself. That's kind of like, yeah, this is what I was looking for. This is what I was hoping to find. This is what I was trying to manifest in. This is what I was patient for. We also have spend quality time together. So this is definitely somebody that wants to get to know you more. They want to have different sorts of experiences than you've had up to this point in time. So if it's just been like a talking stage or there's like long distance between you, this is somebody that wants to meet up. They want to go do activities. They may even want some of you to like, you know, meet their friends, possibly even meet their family. Although it feels like it's kind of a situation where it might be early to meet family, unless they've got like a family member that's sort of like a best friend too. Then it might be like, yeah, you know, just come meet my bro because he's my bro and he's my relative, you know, like that kind of a thing. But it's something to where it's they're wanting to have like more time with you. You know, they don't really necessarily need time to kind of like think about things. This is not somebody that necessarily wants to like keep their options open or, you know, spread their time amongst many different people. But there's a sense of like, I like what we have with one another. I like the momentum that has been established. I like the way you make me feel inside. I like the way that I'm able to kind of like make you very joyous. I'm able to bring out a side of you that maybe, you know, it's something where you've kind of shared like, I don't really share this with people, or, you know, I'm not usually this way. That can be a quirky part of you, or maybe a romantic part of you, you know, maybe something, you know, this person brings out like your soft side, and you're not having to kind of, you know, be in sort of the lead in this situation, whatever that is. It's kind of, this person is like, there's some sort of chemical reaction between the two of us, energetically speaking, that's like bringing out new and exciting sides of us, like the best parts of us. So yeah, I'm curious about what the future holds. Yeah, I'm wanting to explore this further. Yeah, I'm wanting to get other eyes on this to kind of like get that sense of reassurance or reinforcement that, yeah, this was the right decision. Or even for some, this is something where they're wanting to kind of like tell someone, see, I was good to keep my standards high because look, I was able to magnetize in what I wanted to through this kind of formula, through this sort of, you know, discernment, through this aspect of like, I'm not just gonna settle for whatever sort of comes along or the first thing out of the gate, but I'm gonna make sure that it feels right. I'm gonna make sure that it is that kind of dream person come to life. I believe that they're out there. I'm holding out for that, and now you've turned up in their life, and so this is something that is a very affirming experience for this person. We also have like attracts like. So even if you guys are like the yin to one another's yang, you're like opposites. This person feels like you fit together like two peas in a pod. If you have had like physical contact with this person, they feel like your bodies just fit together. Maybe you hug and it's like, yeah, you were meant to stand here. Our bodies fit very well together. You know, if you've kissed, it's kind of like, this is the kiss that is, no kiss compares to that. Or you've held hands and it's like, yeah, our hands fit so well together. Even eye contact, it feels like it's almost like a bridge between worlds that was just waiting for the two of you to come into contact with one another. Like, yeah, this is the way that intimacy is supposed to feel, you know, beyond the spoken word, in a way that's not making us both uncomfortable, but just kind of is that sort of gateway to eternity. if you haven't had like physical encounters with one another, then there's a sense of like feeling that you're very aligned, even in ways that you can kind of like agree to disagree. There's a sense of like, I don't feel triggered or oppositional to kind of qualities you're bringing to the table, opinions that you have, goals and dreams, or just kind of, the way that you live your life that might be different from mine. I see that as we are very complementary to one another. It works. I'm excited about like, what would a long-term relationship with someone like you be like? What would it be like to start a family with someone like you? What would it be like to grow old with somebody like you? It's almost like you challenge this person and also really encourage them to kind of not cut any corners with themselves, to be very kind of like honest with themselves, very self-loving, very self-accepting. You've shown them a side of partnership, or like the potential of partnership between two people, that brings together, again, sort of these like, you compensate for one another's like strengths and sort of deficits in a beautiful way. It's like a beautiful dance between the two of you where you're taking turns kind of leading and following so far in your interactions with one another, and they feel that that is a really good fit. That's what they are looking for. We also have actions speak louder than words. So this person really respects the fact that like, if you've set certain boundaries, it's not just been as like a way to test them. Like, you know yourself, you love yourself first and foremost. And from that place, all other love and relationships flows. Not in a way that is like self-centered or egotistical, but they see you as someone with like high standards, or you need to raise those standards in the aftermath of experiences or chapters in your life where you didn't have that, where you put others' emotional needs before your own. So the ways in which you've even kind of, set a boundary with this person that has kind of required them to sort of, maintain their own autonomy, or really rise to certain challenges that the connection so far has, presented, or that are just part of the nature of your experience with one another. All of this is something which is incentivizing this person to want to work harder to be a part of your life, to, prioritize the time you spend with one another, to cherish and make the most of those moments that you have with one another, not take those for granted. This is somebody that wants to make sure that, your emotional needs are being fulfilled because they feel very fulfilled by you already. This is somebody that it feels like they want to give more than they're taking into this situation, because they see that you are someone who can appreciate that. You've appreciated their actions so far. You've respected their boundaries, or kind of just the limits of where you're at with one another at this point in the connection. This person might be used to dealing with people in the past that were very like, just very pestery, sort of like, where is it going? Where is it headed? Like really early on in the interactions, kind of like, what do you want out of this situation? What are your intentions? And like, you've only been talking for a week, something like that, where it's kind of like, other people tried to like move too quickly, or didn't really sort of like trust in the process that was happening, or communication was just off, or people weren't really like wanting the same things as them. But with you, there's a sense of like, all of it sort of flows differently. It flows naturally. Even if there are these points where you're having these kind of like, disagreements, or there's some degree of like holding back, it's almost like it's a point of like self-reflection. It's not something where this person feels rejected by you, or a need to kind of chase, but it's sort of like you're able to ebb and flow with one another in a way that feels very healthy, very different from anything that they've known before. And it's making them very excited to kind of, explore this more, or get to know you more, because it feels like this is a good investment for the two of you. Yeah, and we also have turn your heart light on. So you really do turn this person on in a lot of ways. You are very physically pleasing. You're very sensually pleasing. You're very emotionally pleasing. You're intellectually pleasing. Even kind of the mystery and the potential of sort of what else is in store in this situation. What are new experiences that you can have? All of that is something which doesn't fill them with a sense of uncertainty, like, okay, I got a plan. I got to make sure that, I'm prepared for anything, or that I got my guard up just in case I get hurt, or they're not like looking back at past heartbreaks or sort of lessons that they've experienced and like, okay, I got to be on the lookout for these things. I don't want to make those same mistakes. It's like they're trusting in this process with you in a way that might be kind of surprising for them. This person could be kind of cynical, kind of jaded about love, or they had been when they encountered you, maybe even just because it was so hard for them to like connect with someone on a deeper level that they were getting kind of frustrated frustrated, like, I don't know, I've got this kind of dream vision of sort of what connection will be like. I'm trying to manifest a very specific kind of person and I'm just not finding them. And so you've come in like right at the nick of time, right at the moment when sort of like they needed that reassurance. They needed that affirmation from the universe that, yeah, they set their sights in a particular direction and it was good. It has worked out. So this is somebody that is like opening up in the heart space. This is somebody that is like trusting in kind of the building emotions that they have, the building momentum between the two of you. You really light this person up inside and it feels like they want to find new ways to sort of give you reassurances, spend more time with you and be very excited about what the future holds. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. Like or comment to claim these energies. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more content that I put out here. Don't forget to hit the bell button to get notifications every time I post a new video. And if you would like to book a personal reading with me, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link for that below. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.